Welcome, friends, to Economic Update Extra. This is the place where, for our Patreon friends, we continue the interview and conversation from the regular programming. And today we're talking with two people intimately involved in the Toys R Us corporate meltdown and collapse and closing and what it meant and what lessons it teaches. So, Cheryl, I want to participate a little further with you in talking about severance. You know, in economics, I'm an economist, severance has always been understood as a way, a small symbolic way for a corporation to recognize that it has a responsibility when it shuts down and deprives its workers of a livelihood. Those workers have invested in their children's education, in buying a home perhaps, in all kinds of things based on the assumption that that job was there. And if that job is taken away, there's some minimal responsibility. Tell us what happened again with your severance pay from Toys R Us and that of the other workers, and what possible justification there is for what they did.
Well, after working for Toys R Us for 33 years and being left with nothing, they told us we were getting severance pay, and they gave us nothing. Which, after all these years and 33,000 employees of losing their jobs, and they told us that we were getting severance pay, and then they said, oh, you're not getting anything, which they promised us, and we are entitled to severance pay. So fighting for 33,000 employees is what I'm doing, is trying to get severance pay.
Is there a chance you can do it?
Absolutely. I'm going to fight till the end. Fighting with Rise Up Retail. We're going to keep fighting till we get it. With KKR, Bain and Renato, we're going to get something from them because we're entitled to it.
I just want to point out to everybody that KKR, Renato, these are some of the richest people on the planet.
Absolutely.
Who are holding in companies that are already flush with cash the money that they could otherwise give to deal, and it's modest for them, to deal with a crisis in 33,000 people's lives.
Yes.
So it's an extraordinary example of many people being damaged to enrich the few who already are the richest. It's as gross a story as imaginable. Can you give us a sense of how workers feel about this? Even you yourself, what does it do to you as a human being to be treated this way?
I can tell you from my standard point of view, I can't even find a job right now. I'm struggling with car payments. I'm struggling with rent. I have friends of mine that can't even get her prescriptions filled. I can tell you right now, I don't even, my rent is due, my lease is due in my apartment. I don't even know if I can sign my new lease. It's hard. I speak to a lot of associates that are having a hard time with it. I can't even find a job at this point. It's been 3 weeks since I've been out of the store, and it's hard mentally. It's hard for me. I don't know.
It's an amazing thing, you know. For me as an observer, the damage that is being done here, you really have to scratch your head. In order to make more profits for folks that are already flush, you are condemning, tens of thousands of families to go through an open-ended period of catastrophe in there. I mean, it's extraordinary.
It's sad. It's very sad.
It is very sad.
My husband is 60 years old. He had to get 2 jobs to try to make ends meet.
To carry you through this.
Yeah.
And what happens to the single mother or all the people who can't find a bridge, hopefully, to get them through? Are you seeing this as someone who works with this kind of situation more generally? Are you seeing this elsewhere? Is this a problem you encounter? Are we looking at Toys R Us as an isolated example or as something more typical?
I think this is something that we've seen many times in the past. We're seeing it right now with stores like Claire's, Kmart, Sears. These are all companies owned by private equity that are on the verge or going through bankruptcy. Right. When we look back over the past 10 years, we've seen almost 300,000 workers lose their jobs because of private equity-induced closings at companies. And in Cheryl's case, the company's driven to the ground. They promised workers 1 week of pay per year. They've been there, been with the company, and now they're owed at least $75 million, right? And we're working towards that. And what we're working towards to hopefully save workers the grief that Cheryl's going through in the future is trying to change some of these laws, right? So that we have joint employer status for Wall Street and private equity so that they're held to at least the same level of responsibility as the corporations themselves. We're looking at clawback taxes so that private equity companies that destroy corporations, that we have a means to get some of the profits that they made back so we can help these workers out. A private equity job destruction fee, because we know the way that private equity and the hedge funds operate, oftentimes it's offshoring jobs, it's downsizing companies so they can make a little bit more money. And if that is the route that they want to go, we should make sure that we are taxing them appropriately so that we have the funds to at least patch up some of the destruction that they're creating. And we're also looking at things like transparency. A lot of people don't know what's going on at these companies. A lot of the workers don't know what's going on. And we believe that when a takeover is going to happen, there were stipulations as to making sure the company communicates with the workers, we imagine the takeover may have not happened. Many of the workers probably didn't want it to happen. And if they knew what was going on, they could have voiced their opinions and maybe avoided that. We're looking at things like closing the carriage interest loophole, right? Other forms of accountability, because what we've seen is that in this country, a lot of things are driven by the excessive need for profit. And we know that if there's a nice way to do it, they'll do it. But if they have to burn it down and pocket the ashes, they'll do that as well. And
how do they defend themselves? What have they said to you or to you? Is there an excuse? Is there some rationalization, some story they tell to make it seem reasonable what they're doing?
What I've heard with Toys R Us is that it's Amazon's fault.
That's not.
That's what everyone
They
says.
all say every mall that's
Yes.
collapsing in America tells you it's
Yeah.
Amazon's fault, or it's the internet.
It's not.
And Amazon is a big company, but when you saddle a company like Toys R Us with $5 billion worth of debt,
Yep.
you're not putting them in a position to compete. Every company is prepared to deal with disruption. That is just the nature of these companies. But when you saddle them with debt, it's like trying to fight off a bear with a 100-pound backpack on. You can't expect for these companies to compete. And I think that private equity and Wall Street, they, like you said earlier, is if they're making money, they're okay, right? They're not worried about
But
what
how
else
are
happens.
you going to stop it? How are you going to stop the system that works this way, that there are people with bunches of money looking to borrow with the money they have, a big pile of money, saddle some company with debt, figuring out, because they got the accountants and economists like me, that the land they're sitting on can be sold for more money than they can get in a short time by being a good toy store. So they don't have no commitment that they're pure money people. Their job is to come in with X and come back with X plus. That's their game. And what the damage they do in this system, they're not accountable. Toys R Us, the KKR, they don't have any responsibility for your rent. That's your problem. They offload all of the costs onto you, and they rake in the benefits for them. This is a system that's set up to do this. And while I appreciate everything you've just said, and these are obviously directions to go in, on this program, and for me, there's always this worry that we're trying to patch, to avoid this problem and that problem. But it's a little bit like the old story of the refrigerator repair guy who comes to your house and fixes it. And then 2 months later, you call him again, he comes to your house and he fixes it. And this goes on, and then you call him one time, and he comes to you and he says, look, I'm going to do you a favor. I'll fix it. I'll charge you $200, but you're going to be on the phone calling me in 2 weeks. You got to get a new refrigerator. We're done with this one. You can't. It's irrational. That's my fear. We're going to stop them this way. We're going to make a little limit there. But this is the refrigerator. We're fixing this. It's busted. The thing is busted. Anyway, this is your program, not my program. What should happen to other workers? What can you say to workers in 1,000 corporations across this country who are watching this program asking themselves, oh my God, could this be happening to where I'm working? Could this be happening to me or my sister or my cousin or whoever? How do you know? You spoke before about workers being unaware. How many people are ever aware of the detailed financial machinations that they don't know anything about? I mean, there's a level of insecurity and uncertainty that must eat, even if you don't admit it to yourself. What do you think about that?
When I file applications, I look into the place where I file to make sure that these guys are not invested into the companies, because I'm scared to go into retail again, because I'm afraid that this is going to happen to me again.
When you first heard about them buying it in 2005, you said, did you understand what this meant?
I didn't understand a word. I didn't understand nothing.
And nobody explained
Nobody
it to
explained
you.
nothing to me. But I saw something happening when we didn't have parties,
Right.
get-togethers. We used to do a lot of things. Everything was gone.
Did you when you noticed that? Did you link it to the financial?
I didn't think
Hanky-panky?
I didn't think anything about it. And then when I started to see things, and then I'm like, wait, since this happened, I gotta think about it. And then I started to see that, and I'm like, this is not good. This is not good. And I knew, and then I kept seeing the changes, and then I said, oh no, not this. And then
When did you link it to the financial things? In other words,
probably about like 2007. 2007 when I started.
it took a couple years.
It took a couple of years when I started to see it getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Then I said, this isn't good. And then I just said, nothing will happen. And then I just saw it, and I'm like, this
sort of being run into the ground.
started running into the ground. And then the treatment that we got started to get really bad in the stores. It got really, really bad. Like I lost my mom, I lost my dad and stuff. And they used to send flowers and stuff like that. And it was
didn't do it
nothing,
anymore.
nothing. Nothing from corporate, nothing from the stores, nothing. It was just bad. It was bad. And I had customers coming in and thanking me in the stores thank you for being here for my kids. Because they know how, how nice and stuff. You still got a smile on your face even though you're going through this. It's just grateful. People were very grateful.
But
It's just very sad. I just want to know how these corporate people sleep at night, knowing that just 33,000 employees don't have nowhere to go.
Right. You wonder how they sleep at night.
I want to know how they sleep at night, because I don't sleep well.
That's why I asked you that question. I wondered what story they tell themselves.
I just want to know how they sleep at night, because I know I don't sleep well.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that some of the stories they tell, because that's what economics unfortunately often is a story that somehow this was inefficient. That's why you hear about Amazon. That somehow it's more efficient to get your package delivered by the Amazon truck than it is to go into a store, which conveniently forgets that when you go to a store, there's a person there, and you can ask that person about that toy,
and you can
look
product.
at it and touch it and feel it, and all those, that's conveniently forgotten. That's how you know this is an excuse.
Right.
This isn't a true story.
Right.
It's an excuse. It also means, though, you're teaching us the precarity, the precarious nature of a job. Even in a company with a history and a reputation like Toys R Us had.
How are you going to go to store? How are you going to go to Amazon and ride a bike?
That's right. Well, how are you going to live with the uncertainty? You don't know when you go home at the end of the day. For all you know, that day in some office somewhere, some documents were signed, and it's the end of your job world. It's an argument, your story, for change, if I ever heard it.
I think so. And there's 13 million retail workers across this country. And I know that they all had their eyes on Toys R Us. They understand what's going on. I think we've seen it, I'm on the younger side, but I think what we've seen is that workers realize what's happening. Everyone understands they're being left behind and that this system is rigged and not in their favor. And all of, 13 million retail workers, they all vote. They all know that they're trying to move and create change, and democracy is, sometimes can be a slow process, but the workers are ready for it.
I hope they've been listening and watching. I hope they take a message. Change is not something for other people. It's for you. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you, girls. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
And making your story part of everybody's life. Very, very important.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. Economic Update Extra, and we will be talking to you again next week.